been visited numerous times. I think what is going on right now, there's an agenda out there. Like I said it the other night, Russia, the Soviet Union, took little kids, babies, and basically brainwashed them from a baby all the way up to adult, training them. They built cities, little towns, and they had them convinced that they were Americans. Sent them over in our country, and they were brainwashed. A key word, they would take their little suitcase bomb and detonate it. Well, thank God we never ended up in a war where that happened. Something is going on here with these people being abducted. I can't believe they're just checking the DNA or taking eggs or taking sperm from people, because they've been doing this so long. There's some other agenda out here that me and you and everybody else can't figure out what it is. I don't know if the government even knows. If they do, it would be really scary.
In the 90s, when the abductions were really coming into the fore, there were a lot of abductees claiming that they had received some kind of instructions to perform some task in the future at some undetermined point. And they didn't know what it was, and they didn't know when it was supposed to happen. And I remember thinking, we've got a bunch of Manchurian candidates running around. But if they did fulfill certain instructions at a future date, it has been done in such a way that we haven't noticed what it is. It's not like we've had some big event, and then all these people come out of the woodwork and do something or do a bunch of things. But that was going on in the 90s. And I think the mood, the vibe now is scarier. It's more negative.
I think so. And don't forget, these people who were maybe abducted and had thoughts implanted in their head, maybe that DNA, whatever was implanted to them, could carry over to their offsprings. Maybe they're not ready yet to do what they want to do. That maybe it might be a few more generations, but when they abduct these people, they're implanting them thoughts. It's already a proven fact that they can implant that type of thing in through the DNA. So, just think about that. We could have all these, what you said, candidates walking around, but maybe they're not the ones that's going to be carrying out the mission. It could be their offsprings or their great offsprings that might do it when the time is right. We don't know.
Well, we're getting into borderline science fiction scenarios, but...
Well, it's no worse than anything else, because we don't know any answer on any of this, really.
Yeah, but some of it almost sounds like a bad science fiction movie. But maybe, the hybrids are being created in such a way that they're close enough to normal humans as we know them that we don't realize that they're hybrids, and maybe this is being brought forward into the next generations, and some kind of change is being promulgated.
Well, how about
that's a possibility?
How about the people that are being abducted are not the same ones that come back?
Well, I haven't heard that one, but I guess that's another possibility.
Well, it is a possibility. I've had a couple guests on, and we talked about that here too recently, that they abduct people. You remember that movie? God, I'm trying to think about it. The Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that movie wasn't so far-fetched. The whole point is we don't know what's going on.
No, we don't.
And when I looked at those pictures of human mutilations, I couldn't figure out why. Why would they have to do that? Why are they still doing cattle mutilations? As I said last night, and probably said about 10 times in the last month, these cattle mutilations that happened in Oregon here about 2 months ago. A pathologist came out, and he's studying, these cattle mutilations, and he's a well-known pathologist. I just can't remember his name. But he said these cattle are standing when some of this mutilation has started, because when the eyes are removed, you got liquid between the brain and the eyes. And if they were laying down, already dead, and the eyes would be removed, the liquid would run off the side of their head. In all these cases, that the ones he's been, checking, which nobody even thought about it before, he claims that the liquid brain matter is running off the nostrils, which means the animal is standing when it starts.
Uh-huh. Well, that's even a little bit different than the way that Lynn Howe thought things were being done back in the 80s, when she was studying the cattle mutilations. And maybe things are changing. Maybe they're evolving. Maybe the techniques are changing.
It could be. And maybe the people that are investigating it, have more experience now because, again, this pathologist, that's what he does for, a living. He goes through and forms autopsies and all this stuff and comes up with why maybe somebody died or if they were murdered and all that stuff. I mean, technology has moved up so much than the 70s and 80s. So whatever is going on is scary. And any of this documentation that you're looking for, is any of it facing any of this direction at all?
No. And the good stuff is classified. Now, we can file Freedom of Information Act requests. I filed a mandatory request for declassification on certain files and haven't heard anything back. And we can do that. And we can develop sources, people to talk to, and people that do successfully develop sources. Sometimes they're fed documents that may or may not be genuine. This is the kind of world that we're living in. I go to the National Archives in order to look for patterns and to locate samples of things that I can compare against question documents. That's one of the things that I'm doing. And other opportunities arise. For example, there was a lady that was with the Congressional Research Service in the 70s, and at that time, President Carter had promised that he would release all the UFO information, and he requested that the Congressional Research Service produce certain reports, a couple of reports about UFOs. Well, while that was being done, an attorney, a well-known attorney now, Daniel Sheehan, who was given UFO talks to, had been given access to certain, and this is a story that he tells, okay, that he had been given access to certain classified Blue Book files, actually in the basement of the Madison building at the Library of Congress. And I have attempted to communicate with this person that was with the Congressional Research Service at the time that was involved in this, but I haven't received a reply back. Okay. Another thing that I'm trying to do is there is a report from that was published by Keith Basterfield on his blog, that there was a quote unquote secret private report created for Lyndon Johnson. And getting back to James McDonald had been badgering apparently President Johnson to do something about the UFO problem, and President Johnson had a couple of people produce a report, and that report has never been made public. And I believe that Grant Cameron may have part of it and may know someone that has a copy of it, and I'm currently checking into another possible source for that to see if a copy can be found. So, these leads turn up and I follow up on them and, just do what I can to find out what I can.
And then try put the pieces together like a puzzle.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, it is a puzzle. It's like a matrix, and it's like a mosaic. And in finance, they have what they call the mosaic principle, and that's where in finance, in the securities industry, it's a big no-no to trade on inside information. But what you can do is you can take public sources of information and any sources that you can find and put the information together in your own file, and then make your estimate about what should be done based on that. And that's known as the mosaic principle. Now, I am of the opinion that the UFO problem is not primarily a scientific problem. It's an intelligence gathering and analysis problem. Because if we look at the whole picture, at the big picture, at the population, at the sightings reports, at the abduction reports, and what the government is doing, and worldwide, and so on and so forth, science is a subset of that, and science can be employed in certain instances where you have physical evidence or you have things that can be studied under controlled conditions. But the problem with UFOs is that you don't know where you're going to see one, or when you're going to see one, or how. So you have no control over the conditions under which you could study the phenomenon. So it's very difficult to do science as we know it. But if you get radar tapes, or radar tracking, or electronic records, or such things that can be studied, you can do science. And in field investigation, you can apply scientific principles in doing the best that you can to estimate what the witness experienced. But I think in the bigger picture, it's an intelligence gathering and analysis problem. And it's like a big, huge mosaic, and we've got a piece here, we have a piece there, and pieces over there, and we're trying to put together this picture like it's a jigsaw puzzle, okay? And we have part of the border, and we have part of the inside, but we don't have the picture yet.
Well, I know. All I can say is that maybe someday you might stumble on something, or somebody else is going to stumble something to put part of the puzzle together. I know one thing, that I had a friend who, was a vice president at Republic Airlines. I think I might have told you this before. And, of course, Republic Airlines is no longer with us. But during the Vietnam War, he used to fly from Guam to, North Vietnam, drop what he classified eggs, which were the bombs, and then return. And on a return flight, he saw a UFO off his wing. His co-pilot, everybody on the craft, saw it. And he made the mistake. He radioed in that there was a UFO off his wing, and asking for instructions. Well, the instructions he got is when he landed, he was told, him and his crew, not to leave the plane. Security personnel got there, and they surrounded the vehicle, armed guards, and they were taken into what he said, a building, and they were separated, and they were interrogated, and then they were told it never happened. They mentioned, prison to him, Leavenworth. They mentioned that things could happen to them or their families or whatever if they ever divulged it. Now, he told me this, and it was scary. He also, told me that he instructed his pilots that flew for Republic Airlines, if you see a UFO, never report it. I don't want to hear about it. If you do, that's the end of your license. That's the end of your career. It's over. It's history. And if the government didn't believe that there was something going on, they wouldn't threaten people that way. So something has been going on for a long time. It's still continuing going on. Now, our time is virtually up. Do you want to hang on for about 15 minutes after the bottom of the hour? And because I do want to ask you what's going on with Mufon, because I'm getting different stories with Mufon about, people within Mufon. I got people who are saying that they're really happy with Mufon. Then I got another group of campers that's saying something is not right. And I don't know if you want to give any feedback on that.
Sure, I'll be glad to.
Okay, we'll be back here at the bottom of the hour with Tom Whitmore. We're going to talk a little bit about MUFON and all that stuff. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. After dark, you can check out our website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. We'll be back in 3 minutes.
What we are asking for from the government is full disclosure.
As I gaze upon the annals of time, one thing that